Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is R.S. Raghu and with me is Saira Mujtaba, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. The headlines. WHO grants emergency use approval to Bharat Biotech's Covaxin vaccine against COVID-19. Prime Minister Narendra Modi stresses on adopting innovative ways and micro-strategies to increase COVID vaccination rate. Over 100 countries joined the global methane pledge at the COP26 to cut methane emissions. China continues with border restrictions, signals no deviation from zero COVID-19 policy. Ethiopia declares nationwide state of emergency. UN Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet voices alarm at the deteriorating human rights situation. India and Bhutan formalize 7 additional entry-exit points for trade. Rahul Dravid appointed as India men's cricket team head coach. And in the ICC T20 World Cup, India takes on Afghanistan in the Super 12 match. As India created history by administering 100 crore vaccine doses against COVID-19, All India Radio salutes all the doctors, nurses, other frontline workers and all those who got vaccinated and made this possible. Even though the country has achieved this feat, we caution our listeners that the battle against COVID is not yet over. We appeal to our listeners to get fully vaccinated at the earliest and also help others get vaccinated. During the festival season, please follow these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing and focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact the national helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. And now the news in detail. The World Health Organization WHO on Wednesday granted approval for the emergency use listing EUL to Bharat Biotech's Covaxin vaccine against COVID-19. At the G20 summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi pushed for WHO's nod for Covaxin, saying India will produce 5 billion COVID vaccine doses for the world next year. Speaking at the G20 summit on global economy and global health, Mr. Modi said that India's commitment would go a long way in preventing the global transmission of coronavirus. The Technical Advisory Group of WHO, which met on Wednesday, recommended the emergency use listing status for Covaxin. The World Health Organization's panel had last week sought additional clarifications from the Hyderabad-based firm. Covaxin vaccine was also reviewed by WHO's Strategic Advisory Group of experts on the immunization and the recommended use of this vaccine in 2 doses, with a dose of interval of 4 weeks, in all age groups of 18 and above. The WHO said in a series of tweets that Covaxin EUL expands the availability of the most effective medical tools to end COVID-19. Covaxin is one of the 6 vaccines that have received emergency use authorization from Drugs Controller General of India and is being used in the nationwide inoculation program, along with Covishield and Sputnik V. WHO Southeast Asia Regional Director Dr. Poonam Khetrapal Singh in a tweet congratulated India for Covaxin's listing for emergency use. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu expressed happiness that the country's indigenous vaccine has been approved by WHO for emergency use. Mr. Naidu congratulated Bharat Biotech, ICMR and all others associated with the development of the vaccine. Bharat Biotech Chairman and Managing Director Dr. Krishna Ella said the validation by WHO is a very significant step towards ensuring global access to India's widely administered, safe and efficacious Covaxin. He said it will facilitate countries to expedite their regulatory approval to introduce and administer India's indigenously made COVID-19 vaccine developed and manufactured by Bharat Biotech. After getting the nod from the WHO in a statement in Hyderabad, Dr. Krishna Ella said it will also enable the procurement by UNICEF, Pan American Health Organization, PAHO and the GAVI COVAX facility for distribution to countries in need. He further said, as an organization, they have focused on maintaining stringent quality and safety standards that meet rigorous assessment and scientific standards established by WHO. He added that the EUL authorization for Covaxin will enable them to contribute to accelerating the equitable access of COVID-19 vaccine and the access to it globally, thereby addressing the current public health emergency.
India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage has crossed 107 crore 59 lakh today. Out of the total vaccination, more than 73 crore 74 lakh vaccine doses have been given as the first dose, while over 33 crore 84 lakh doses have been administered as the second dose. The Union Health Ministry said more than 27 lakh vaccine doses were administered today. As part of the nationwide vaccination drive, the centre has been supporting the states and union territories by providing them COVID vaccines free of cost. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi has stressed on the need to adopt innovative ways to increase vaccination in districts with low COVID vaccination coverage. The Prime Minister said this during a review meeting on Wednesday with districts having low vaccination coverage through video conferencing. During the interaction, the Prime Minister discussed the issue of vaccine hesitancy and local factors behind it. Mr. Modi said the better performing districts also had similar challenges, but they dealt with them with determination and innovation. He asked officials to develop micro-strategies, keeping in mind the previous experiences to deal with the saturation of vaccination and address the gaps at the local level. The Prime Minister asked officials to change gears from making arrangements to take people to the vaccination centres and door-to-door vaccination. U.S. President Joe Biden said the authorization of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine for children between the age of 5 and 11 is a turning point in the country's battle against COVID-19. Last Friday, the U.S. health regulator, the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, authorized the Pfizer Inc. and BioNTech coronavirus vaccine for children aged 5 to 11 years. This made it the first COVID-19 shot for young children in the U.S. On Tuesday, advisors to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention unanimously supported broad use of Pfizer's and BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine in children from age 5 to 11. President Biden hailed the development as a major step forward for the fight to defeat the virus.
Over 100 countries have signed up for the Global Methane Pledge in Glasgow at the COP26. U.S. Climate Envoy John Kerry announced in a tweet on Tuesday that over 100 participating countries and over $300 million in financial support was adopted for the Global Methane Pledge. A report.
According to the sixth assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, methane, a potent greenhouse gas, accounts for about half of the 1 degree Celsius net rise in global average temperature since the pre-industrial era. Methane is 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide at trapping heat in the atmosphere. Oil and gas systems, livestock, rearing and landfills are some of the major sources of methane emissions. The Global Methane Pledge is an initiative by the United States and the European Union to reduce global methane emissions. The countries joining the Global Methane Pledge commit to a collective goal of reducing global methane emissions by at least 30% from 2020 levels by 2030. The Global Methane Pledge has the potential to cut down methane emissions, which is considered a low-hanging fruit in the efforts at limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Nishit Kumar for World News.
As the UN Climate Summit, the Conference of Parties COP26 is underway, All India Radio brings you a ready reckoner to explain the key concepts associated with the summit. In the COP26 Explainer series, every day we bring you the terms and concepts that will be in use in COP26. Today we shall talk about green credits.
The Green Credit is a program aimed to help mitigate the impact of climate change and improve the environment. It aims at encouraging the environmental conservation, among other measures. As a part of the Clean Development Mechanism under the Kyoto Protocol, the investors from the developed countries can finance the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in developing countries. In turn, they can receive certified emission reduction units, CERs. The CERs can be credited towards the commitments of the respective developed countries. In India, the Green Credit Scheme seeks to encourage plantation by individuals outside the traditional forest area. It adds to the green or the forest cover and mitigates the impact of carbon emissions. In the process, it helps in meeting international commitments such as Sustainable Development Goals and nationally determined contributions. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in his address at the G20 summit in 2015, had given a call to the group to shift from a system of carbon credit to green credit. Nishit Kumar for World News.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced on Tuesday that India will become a net zero emitter by 2070. The announcement is significant as India is the fourth largest emitter of these gases that cause warming of the earth after the US, China and the EU. India's net zero target has reinforced its commitment to climate action. Dr. Gaurav Bhatiani, Director Energy and Environment at RTI International, speaks about the significance of this decision.
India's net zero target for 2070 is a visionary move. It reinforces India's global leadership and is consistent with Mahatma Gandhi's message. That is, the world has enough for everyone's needs, but not enough for everyone's greed. Clean energy and adaptation programs create green jobs, reduce the risk for the poor and vulnerable, while simultaneously protecting our environment for the future generations. Children and the youth can be the torch bearers, both in communicating and in adopting sustainable lifestyles. I am confident that you will rise to the occasion to save the earth, the only home that we have. Thank you.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry on Wednesday parried a question on visas for family members of Indians working in China. China has recently allowed visa applications for family members of qualified foreign workers from the US and Australia working in Beijing and other Chinese cities. On the question to extend the provision to the families of Indians working in China, the Foreign Ministry spokesperson said it will adjust the relevant policies in view of COVID-19 pandemic in a timely manner. Meanwhile, China's top respiratory expert Zhong Nanshan has said the country will not give up its zero tolerance towards COVID-19 policy anytime soon. Our Beijing correspondent reports that this effectively indicates that Beijing will continue to keep its international borders closed or heavily controlled for the foreseeable future. The UN Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet on Wednesday voiced alarm at the deteriorating situation in Ethiopia after a nationwide state of emergency was declared on Tuesday. Speaking in Geneva, Ms. Bachelet insisted on the need to bring to justice perpetrators of a vast array of rights abuses. Ms. Bachelet was commenting on the findings of a joint investigation by her office and the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission into abuses warned of possible war crimes and crimes against humanity committed by all sides during the Tigray conflict. The UNHCR in a statement made an impassioned plea for all parties to end the violence and prioritize the protection of civilians and full respect for the human rights. The situation in Ethiopia has spiraled into the current state since Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed sent troops into the northern region in November 2020. Mr. Ahmed took the decision to detain and disarm the Tigray People's Liberation Front, whom he accused of attacking army camps.
India and Bhutan formalized 7 additional entry-exit points for trade between the two neighbors. The agreement was reached in the India-Bhutan Commerce Secretary level meeting held in New Delhi on Wednesday. The two sides held extensive discussions on the current trade and transit issues, including measures to further strengthen bilateral trade relations and issues of mutual interest. On ways to increase trade connectivity between the two countries, the agreement will form an addendum to the Protocol of 2016 India-Bhutan Agreement on Trade, Commerce and Transit. Since 2014, trade between India and Bhutan has more than doubled from $484 million in 2014-15 to $1,083 million in 2020-21. This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates around the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a roundup of the key messages from Prime Minister Narendra Modi at COP26.
The 2021 UN Climate Change Conference, or COP26, brings together governments from around the world to agree for coordinated action to tackle climate change. India will achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2070 and reduce 1 billion tons of carbon emissions from the total projected emissions by 2030. The country will bring down the carbon intensity of its economy by more than 45% by 2030. Delivering the national statement at the World Leaders Summit of COP26 in Glasgow, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said India will bring its non-fossil energy capacity to 500 gigawatt by 2030 and it will fulfill 50% of its energy requirement through renewable energy by 2030.
क्लाइमेट चेंज पर इस वैश्विक मंथन के बीच मैं भारत की ओर से इस चुनौती से निपटने के लिए 5 अमृत तत्व रखना चाहता हूं, पंचामृत की सौगात देना चाहता हूं। पहला, भारत 2030 तक अपनी नॉन फोसिल एनर्जी कैपेसिटी को 500 गीगावाट तक पहुंचाएगा। दूसरा, भारत 2030 तक अपनी 50% एनर्जी रिक्वायरमेंट रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी से पूरी करेगा। तीसरा, भारत अब से लेकर 2030 तक के कुल प्रोजेक्टेड कार्बन एमिशन में 1 बिलियन टन की कमी करेगा। चौथा, 2030 तक भारत अपनी अर्थव्यवस्था की कार्बन इंटेंसिटी को 45% से भी कम करेगा। और पांचवा, वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा। ये पंचामृत क्लाइमेट एक्शन में भारत का एक अभूतपूर्व योगदान होंगे।
Mr. Modi said the country constitutes 17% of the global population and its contribution to the emissions has remained only 5%. But today, the entire world admits that India is the only major economy which has delivered on the Paris Agreement in letter and spirit. The Prime Minister opined to track climate finance just like we track the progress of climate mitigation.
ये सच्चाई हम सभी जानते हैं कि क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस को लेकर आज तक किए गए वायदे खोखले ही साबित हुए हैं। जब हम सभी क्लाइमेट एक्शन पर अपने एम्बिशन बढ़ा रहे हैं, तब क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस पर विश्व के एम्बिशन वही नहीं रह सकते जो पेरिस एग्रीमेंट के समय थे। आज जब भारत ने एक नए कमिटमेंट और एक नई ऊर्जा के साथ आगे बढ़ने का संकल्प लिया है, तो ऐसे समय में क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस और लो कॉस्ट क्लाइमेट टेक्नोलॉजी का ट्रांसफर और महत्वपूर्ण हो जाता है। भारत की अपेक्षा है कि विकसित देश जल्द से जल्द $1 ट्रिलियन का क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस उपलब्ध कराएं। आज आवश्यकता है कि जैसे हम क्लाइमेट मिटिगेशन में हुई प्रगति को ट्रैक करते हैं, वैसे ही हम क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस को भी ट्रैक करें। उचित न्याय तो ये होगा कि जो देश क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस पर किए अपने वादों पर खरे नहीं उतरे, उन पर दबाव बढ़े।
The Prime Minister also called for making lifestyle for the environment a global mission.
आज विश्व मान रहा है कि क्लाइमेट चेंज में लाइफस्टाइल की एक बहुत बड़ी भूमिका है। मैं आज आपके सामने एक वन वर्ल्ड मूवमेंट का प्रस्ताव रखता हूं। वन वर्ल्ड एक शब्द क्लाइमेट के संदर्भ में वन वर्ल्ड एक विश्व का मूल आधार बन सकता है, अधिष्ठान बन सकता है। ये एक शब्द है लाइफ, LIFE, यानी लाइफ स्टाइल फॉर एनवायरमेंट। आज जरूरत है कि हम सभी लोग एक साथ आकर कलेक्टिव पार्टिसिपेशन के साथ लाइफ स्टाइल फॉर एनवायरमेंट यानी लाइफ को एक अभियान की तरह आगे बढ़ाएं। ये एनवायरमेंटल कॉन्शियस लाइफ स्टाइल का एक मास मूवमेंट बन सकता है। आज आवश्यकता है माइंडलेस और डिस्ट्रक्टिव कंजम्पशन के बजाय माइंडफुल और डेलिबरेट यूटिलाइजेशन की। ये ऐसे विषय हैं जहां हम में से प्रत्येक को हर रोज कॉन्शियस चॉइस करनी होगी।
At the launch of the Infrastructure for Resilient Island States, IRIS, on the sidelines of the Climate Summit in Glasgow, the Prime Minister said it is aimed at achieving sustainable development through a systematic approach to resilient, sustainable and inclusive infrastructure in small island developing states, SIDS. Speaking on the occasion, Mr. Modi said the launch of IRIS gives a new hope, confidence and satisfaction of doing something for the most vulnerable countries. He said the last few decades have proved that no one is untouched by the wrath of climate change and the small island developing states face the biggest threat from climate change.
पिछले कई दशकों में हुई स्वार्थपूर्ण व्यवहार की वजह से प्रकृति का जो अस्वाभाविक रूप सामने आया है, उसका परिणाम आज निर्दोष स्मॉल आइलैंड स्टेट्स झेल रहे हैं। और इसलिए मेरे लिए सीडीआरआई या आइरिस सिर्फ एक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की बात नहीं है, बल्कि ये मानव कल्याण के अत्यंत संवेदनशील दायित्व का हिस्सा है। ये मानव जाति के प्रति हम सभी की कलेक्टिव जिम्मेदारी है। ये एक तरह से हमारे पापों का साझा प्रायश्चित भी है।
The Prime Minister added that the Indian Space Research Organization will build a special data window for small island developing states to provide them timely information about cyclones, coral reef monitoring and coastline monitoring.
भारत की स्पेस एजेंसी इसरो सीड्स के लिए एक स्पेशल डेटा विंडो को निर्माण करेगी। इससे सीड्स को सैटेलाइट के माध्यम से साइक्लोन, कोरल रीफ मॉनिटरिंग, कोस्टलाइन मॉनिटरिंग आदि के बारे में टाइमली जानकारी मिलती रहेगी। फ्रेंड, आइरिस के साकार करने में सीडीआरआई और सीड्स दोनों ने मिलकर काम किया है। ये को क्रिएशन और को बेनिफिट्स का अच्छा उदाहरण है।
Co-hosted by Australia and the UK, the IRIS launch event saw over 100 attendees. Leaders of SIDS, including Fiji, Jamaica and Mauritius, also participated in the event. Prime Minister, in his address at an event on action and solidarity, the critical decade at COP26 summit said the climate is a major challenge for farmers in most developing countries and shared his views on adaptation.
भारत समेत अधिकतर विकासशील देशों के किसानों के लिए क्लाइमेट बड़ी चुनौती है। क्रॉपिंग पैटर्न में बदलाव आ रहा है। बेसमय बारिश और बाढ़ या लगातार आ रहे तूफानों से फसलें तबाह हो रही हैं। पेयजल के स्रोत से लेकर अफोर्डेबल हाउसिंग तक सभी को क्लाइमेट चेंज के खिलाफ रेजिलिएंट बनाने की जरूरत है। एक्सेलेंसी, इस संदर्भ में मेरे 3 विचार हैं। पहला, एडेप्टेशन को हमें अपनी विकास नीतियों और परियोजनाओं का मुख्य अंग बनाना होगा। भारत में नल से जल, टैप वाटर फॉर ऑल, स्वच्छ भारत, क्लीन इंडिया मिशन और उज्ज्वला क्लीन कुकिंग फ्यूल फॉर ऑल जैसी परियोजनाओं से हमारे जरूरतमंद नागरिकों को एडेप्टेशन बेनिफिट्स तो मिले ही हैं, उनकी क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ में भी सुधार है। दूसरा, कई ट्रेडिशनल कम्युनिटीज में प्रकृति के साथ सामंजस्य में रहने का ज्ञान है। हमारी एडेप्टेशन नीतियों में इन पारंपरिक प्रैक्टिसेस को उचित महत्व मिलना चाहिए। ज्ञान का ये प्रवाह नई पीढ़ी तक भी जाए, इसके लिए स्कूल के सिलेबस में भी इसे जोड़ा जाना चाहिए। तीसरा, एडेप्टेशन के तरीके चाहे लोकल हो कि थ्रू पिछड़े देशों को इनके लिए ग्लोबल सपोर्ट मिलना चाहिए।
In some more news, back home, Government of India has reduced the central excise duty on petrol by 5 rupees and diesel by 10 rupees. The decision is to take effect from Thursday. The Finance Ministry said that the prices of petrol and diesel will come down accordingly. It added that the reduction in excise duty on diesel will come as a boost to the farmers during the upcoming Rabi season. Crude oil prices have witnessed a global upsurge in recent times. Consequently, domestic prices of petrol and diesel had increased in the recent weeks, exerting inflationary pressure. The Finance Ministry said the world has also seen shortages and increased prices of all forms of energy. It said the government has made efforts to ensure that there is no energy shortage in the country. The ministry said the reduction in excise duty on petrol and diesel will also boost consumption and keep inflation low, thus helping the poor and the middle classes. It said today's decision is expected to further spur the overall economic cycle. The ministry has also urged states to commensurately reduce VAT on petrol and diesel to give relief to consumers. The government of Bangladesh signed an agreement with the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, for a loan of $250 million on Wednesday. The loan is being provided to help Bangladesh to implement a sustainable economic recovery program from the impact of COVID-19. The loan agreement was signed by Fatima Yasmin, Secretary, Economic Relations Division, Government of Bangladesh, and DJ Pandya, Vice President, Investment Operations Region 1, on behalf of the AIIB. The program intends to create financing opportunities for small, medium and cottage industries deficient in finding sources of funding. The program also aims to reform and strengthen the public finance management system and expand financial resources.
Moving on to sports, India's Cricket Advisory Committee on Wednesday unanimously appointed Mr. Rahul Dravid as the head coach of the Indian men's cricket. The former India captain will take charge from the upcoming home series against New Zealand. Rahul Dravid will take over as Ravi Shastri's successor, whose term gets over after the ongoing ICC T20 World Cup. In the ICC Men's T20 Cricket World Cup, chasing the target of 211 runs set by India, Afghanistan were 109 for 5 in 17 overs in Abu Dhabi when reports last came in. Earlier, put into bat first, India scored 210 runs for 2 wickets. Rohit Sharma scored 74 in 47 balls, while KL Rahul made 69 in 48 balls. In another match of the tournament today, New Zealand defeated Scotland by 16 runs in Dubai. Put into bat first, New Zealand scored 172 runs for 5 wickets, but Scotland could make only 156 for 5 in the stipulated 20 overs. All India Radio is broadcasting ball-by-ball commentary of the World Cup matches.
And now let's take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Guardian says, Republican Glenn Youngkin wins Virginia governor's race in blow to Biden. Globe and Mail writes, Gabon's green logging laws offer COP26 countries a path to climate action. Financial Times reports Facebook to close down its facial recognition system. Wall Street Journal says Biden says Xi Putin seeds climate influence by missing Glasgow summit. The Himalayan Times says Nepal Supreme Court justices who have asked Chief Justice Khalendra Shamsher J.B. Rana to quit continued their protest by boycotting the benches. Tulu News says hospital attack draws sharp international and domestic reactions. Khalij Times says Indonesian and UAE to ink deals worth $28 billion. And Sputnik News writes, IRGC thwarts U.S. attempt to steal Iranian oil in Sea of Oman.
A quick look at the headlines once again. WHO grants emergency use approval to Bharat Biotech's Covaxin vaccine against COVID-19. Prime Minister Narendra Modi stresses on adopting innovative ways and micro-strategies to increase COVID vaccination rate. Over 100 countries join the global methane pledge at the COP26 to cut methane emissions. China continues with border restrictions, signals no deviation from zero COVID-19 policy. Ethiopia declares a nationwide state of emergency. UN Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet voices alarm at the deteriorating human rights situation. India and Bhutan formalize 7 additional entry-exit points for trade. Rahul Dravid appointed as Indian men's cricket team head coach. And in the ICC T20 World Cup, India takes on Afghanistan in the Super 12 match. India is celebrating the 152nd birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Finland. Vaishnav Janato tene kahiye pir parai jani re para tuke upakar kare toye manad nani re takala loka masahuni vande nindana kare keni re vasaga chamana nishtala Dana dana janani deni re And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.